All right, ladies, hi, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Breaking 90, Breaking 100 workshop. I can remember like it was yesterday when I broke 90 for the first time. I remember the round. I remember who I was playing with. It might sound silly to certain people about those goals, or some people might say, don't have goals like that, or that's silly. We all love going out to the golf course and shooting our best score. It could be one of the best feelings ever in this sport. So I am glad you're all here. It's an amazing sport. And again, my name is Tori, and this is Justin.
Hello, everyone. So excited for you guys to be here. It's kind of cool to be kind of recording something like this live with everybody here. You know, it's kind of looking kind of like a classroom setting here, you know, which I always love, you know, and we now know we got the teachers' pets up front, troublemakers in the back. So good to see you guys.
And now, if I was in the classroom setting, I would be probably like in that seat over there, like way back, just, you know,
troublemaker,
like
right
phone half out, half in, you know, getting into it. So Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. So I'm a full-time golf teacher. I teach full-time, and I'm actually at two different clubs. I'm at a club here in the Valley, and then I also go up to Flagstaff in the summertime. And I've been teaching for a little over 15 years, and it's been, you know, a passion of mine. You know, my life and my passion is helping people get better. So I'm so excited about having you guys here and really having goals of actually breaking 90 or breaking 100 here. So that's really cool. And when you have something that you're excited about, that's kind of the first step to improvement. So, but that's a little bit about me. I've been teaching for a little over 15 years, and I've been mentored by some top 100 teachers in my life, Jim McLean being one of them, and Michael Hebron being another. So, but I'm excited to be here and actually doing this project here with people that are really passionate about really trying to break a score barrier. And we got some really fun things to share with you today.
Yeah, and a little behind the scenes, Justin and I meet on 2 times a week on a Zoom call, and Ashley's on most of those calls. Ashley's my assistant, right-hand woman there. And we get off of each call, and Ashley's like, the amount of passion Justin has about golf is a little too much for me. Like, he gets so excited about teaching golf. Like, it makes no sense to her, but that is what draws me to Justin. Years and years ago, God, it must have been 5-6 years ago, yeah. I was playing the Sweet Swinger, or no, what is it called? Is it
Swing Fest.
Swing Fest up at Forest Highlands, the Invitational in the summer with my sister, and I was struggling out on the course. You know, one of those days where the golf club feels terrible in your hands, you forget how to swing, you know, everything's going wrong. We finished that tournament, and I'm like, Alex, I need a lesson. And she's like, let's text Justin. Because Justin's only at these 2 private courses. We can't, you know, not just anyone can get a lesson with him. So she's like, let's text Justin, maybe he can fit you in. So I met Justin at Forest Highlands. I got that lesson with him that afternoon on the day I was going to drive back to Pine Top. And the lesson could have been 7 minutes long, because I got there, I showed him my swing, he fixed it, I was done, and 7 minutes later I was like, okay, well, send me a bill. So, and ever since then, we have made multiple programs together. His energy, his enthusiasm for golf is always high, which as a golfer sometimes is hard to keep that level at all times. So I need him here with me to keep it high and keep the energy going. So thank you all for being here. Let's go ahead and get started. So when you got here, you did this scoring quiz. And Echo, do you mind passing out the answers? We're going to go through each question and the answers right away. Now, if you're listening on the podcast, you can go ahead and download this packet that all the participants have and follow along throughout the workshop with us.
Absolutely.
All right, Justin, let's get into it.
And did everyone get a chance to finish the quiz here? Everyone okay with that?
Even if you're doing it as we're going, that's totally fine. We're going to go question by question. So
yeah,
Justin,
so let's go into the first one here. So what is the difference in score between the best round and the worst round for the following golfers? So Jordan Spieth, for those of you that don't know, he's a top PGA Tour player and has won multiple majors. So what we're talking about is his best score of his year and his worst score. What's the difference between those two? And the answer for Jordan Spieth was 21 strokes. So 21 strokes between his best score and his worst score. Matt Kuchar, another famous PGA Tour player, his difference between his best score and worst score, 24 strokes. For a top 20 ranked PGA Tour player in the world, it's 16 strokes. So what this answer is supposed to really kind of make you recognize is that people are always asking for consistency. You know, people are like saying, oh, I shoot one score one week and then the next week I'm shooting much higher and then I shoot well, so did the best players in the world. So this game is just an incredibly volatile game, and there's just a lot of inconsistency. So what this is, this quiz, especially this first answer already, is supposed to open your eyes up to is what are the real numbers of golf? You know, what's really happening out there? We get a little bit of a distorted view of what real golf is because we see the highlights of golf each week. We see the winners making all the putts. We see the great players, knocking it into the hole from the bunker. It's not what happens all the time, even at the highest level. Sorry.
Well, and I don't know about you, but there's sometimes I shoot those really high scores and you get off the golf course, the high scores that we all have, here and there, and you get off the golf course and you feel terrible. You're like, how could that just happen? I thought I was making progress. Just knowing this information, it makes those rounds just a little bit easier. Like, okay, this is going to happen. It's going to happen occasionally. Let's just accept it. Let's wipe it from the memory and move on.
Yep. Second question, putting from 4 feet. How often do golfers make putts from 4 feet? And what's so great about these answers is we're going to see what it's like for different caliber players. So for a PGA Tour player, they make it 88% of the time. A scratch player makes it 73% of the time. A 90 golfer makes it 65% of the time. And then a 110 golfer makes it 38% of the time. So making those 4-foot putts, although it seems like the most simplest thing and maybe something that maybe we shouldn't be spending a lot of time on, it is sometimes one of the most drastic differences between really great players and the average golfers or higher handicappers is that they can't make those simple 4-footers more often.
And Justin, what is an average golfer? Like, where is the average golfer shooting?
The average golfer cannot break 100. So that's really something to note, because I think a lot of people see as, oh man, if I can't break 100, I'm like one of the worst players in the world. No, you're probably just looking at the better players at your club and comparing yourselves to them. But you're comparing yourself to like the top 25% of actual golfers because they tend to just play a lot more often and they practice a lot more often. But you think that that's all the golfers in the world. But they're not. If you take every person who plays golf in the world, the average is not breaking 100. So
that's eye-opening.
So we're basically trying to help you guys become better than average. Right?
Absolutely. That's why we're here.
So average.
All right, next up.
How far from the hole do golfers make as many putts as they miss? So what distance from the hole would a player make it 50% of the time? 8 feet. Who said that? Oh, so smart. You're not a troublemaker. Get up here, you teacher's pet. 8 feet is what 50% is for a PGA Tour player. So that is sometimes shocking to some people because 8 feet is not that far away. It's really close.
I actually heard some crazy, Matt Fitzpatrick won the tournament this past weekend, and I heard some crazy quote that he made 100% of his putts from 8 feet and in. Other than the 17th hole in the final round. I was like, wait, is this true? So then I started looking in the comments and they started mentioning the 17th hole in the final round. But he made 100% 8 feet and in.
So that's a perfect example, right? So the winner of a tournament, yes, they might be doing better than this. But on average, even Fitzpatrick, if we average his putts throughout an entire year, it's usually more closer to 50%.
Yeah.
The days that you do really well, though, you might be making those a lot more. And obviously, he made 100% of them. And what a lot of top coaches say about the best players in the world is that at the end of the day, they all drive the ball well. They all hit the ball fairly good. At the end of the day, it's a putting contest. Who putts the best that week? And that's how important putting is to scoring better. And we'll get into that a little bit later. As we go into our fourth question here, how many 3 putts do golfers have during a round? A PGA Tour player will average 0.24 three putts around. A scratch player will average 0.95. A 90 golfer, 5 three putts around. 110 golfer, 7 three putts around. So if you just look at those two right there, if you eliminated your 3 putts, a 90 golfer, if they eliminated their 3 putts and just made them all 2 putts, that's 5 strokes right there you're knocking off your score. If you're a 110 golfer, you're knocking off 7 strokes off your score just by getting rid of 3 putts. Huge. How many total putts do golfers have during a round? Another stat that's super important. PGA Tour player, 28. 30, scratch golfer, 30. 90 golfer, 35. 110 golfer, 41. Okay. What is the average proximity to the hole from the following distances from the green for a PGA Tour player? So inside of 10 yards, a PGA Tour player will put it 3 feet or closer.
So meaning they're like chipping. They're chipping up
They're
onto
chipping.
the green.
So we're talking about chipping around the green from inside of 10 feet. Yep, exactly right. From 20 to 30 yards from the green, they'll put it at 7 feet on average. And then from greenside bunkers, they're at 7 feet. So their short game around the greens are really good. Another big key of why they're the best players in the world.
And can you also touch on the fact, and maybe this is in here somewhere and I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah.
But you told me the stat of PGA Tour players getting up and down from a bunker.
Yep. Yeah. So the stat for a PGA Tour player to get up and down from a bunker. So if you count the shot from the bunker and then count how many putts they take. So if you count the first shot from the bunker as their first shot, how many average shots does it take them to get down? It's 2.5. So meaning that they get up and down half the time, but the other half they're not. They're only making it down in 3. And if you're not a PGA Tour player, really trying to get it up and down shouldn't really be your goal. Your goal should be to get out of the bunker, get it somewhere on the green, and then take your 2-putt from there. Really where the flag is should be almost irrelevant. We're just trying to get into that part of the green.
Like, let's just get out of this bunker, please.
Exactly right. Exactly right. What is the average number of greens in regulation during a round for the following golfers? This is an eye-opener. PGA Tour players, on average, will hit 12 greens in regulation. And for those of you that don't know what greens in regulation means, it means basically if you're on a par 3, it means that the ball is on the green in 1 shot. If you're playing a par 4, it takes you 2 shots to get onto the green. And then for a par 5, it takes you 3 shots to get on the green. If you accomplish that goal for those pars, that's what we call hitting a green in regulation. For a PGA Tour player, they would get on 12 greens in a round of 18 holes. A scratch golfer is only hitting 9 greens in regulation. So they're only hitting half the greens and they're a scratch golfer. A 90 golfer is hitting 3 greens in regulation. So if you're looking to break 90, you really only have to hit 3 greens in regulation. It's shockingly low. You don't really have to hit that many greens in regulation. And then if you're a 110 golfer or trying to break 100, you don't have to hit any greens in regulation. So it's not that much pressure. So, well, it reduces the pressure, right? Because a lot of people...
Or the expectation.
Yeah, the expectation. Yeah, it reduces the expectation, right? Maybe the pressure's still there, but the expectation comes down a little bit. How often do PGA Tour players hit the green in regulation from the following distances? From 150 to 175 yards, they hit it 79% of the time. Okay? From inside of 100 yards, they're on the green 92% of the time. Okay? So when they get to those yardages particularly, they're very good at getting the ball onto the green. Assuming there are only 14 fairways possible to hit, because most courses have 4 par 3s, so there's no fairways to hit on that one with your driver. How many fairways do the following golfers hit during a round of golf? PGA Tour player will hit 10 greens out of the 14.
10 fairways.
10 fairways, sorry. 10 fairways out of the 14. Scratch golfers only hitting 7, so they're only hitting half the fairways to be a scratch golfer. A 90 golfer is hitting 5 fairways. A 110 golfer is hitting 3. Okay. How far do PGA Tour players carry the following clubs? Okay. How far do PGA Tour players carry the following clubs? A driver, they carry 275 yards. A 3-wood, 243 yards. And 6-iron, 183 yards. Sorry that these are PGA Tour averages, because maybe they're not as relevant to you because we don't have the LPGA stats on that, but it's still interesting to note. And then finally, we do have an LPGA stat here. On average, what is how fast miles per hour do a PGA and LPGA Tour player swing the club? A PGA Tour player swings the club 113 miles an hour, and then an LPGA Tour player swings it on average 94 miles an hour. A cool formulation too, if you ever wanted to know, how far do you want to hit your driver? There's a cool formula. If you take whatever you want to hit, let's just say you want to hit it 200 yards, and you divide that by 2.75, it'll give you roughly the club speed you have to swing at. So if you say, I don't have a calculator on me, but if you just take that number of how far you want to hit it, divided by 2.75, and that'll give you the number of how fast you need to be swinging the club.
All right.
Kind of cool.
All right, let's get into our first pillar here.
Yes. So yes, we're going to be basically talking about statistics, right?
Yeah. So the reason for that quiz, though, is really to set expectation and kind of see the reality of what's going on out there. Okay, so now that we know, now we kind of see a formula of how to break these numbers, break 100, break 90. Let's get into how we're going to do it.
Absolutely, yeah. So the way most golf lessons go and how most people improve, if you were to go to a golf lesson, a lot of people come to a lesson and we watch your swing, right? We try to improve your swing, try to improve the technical part of your swing.
Which is absolute torture.
It can be very torturous.
Yeah. I don't care who you're with, even if you're with Justin.
Yes, it's torture to change your swing, which is actually a really good point here because most people, no matter what level you're at, most people don't have a technique problem, they have a tension problem, okay? Why do they have a tension problem? Usually because they have too high of expectations of what they need to do, which is why we started with that quiz. People have really high expectations, like they have to hit the ball really far, they have to get the ball onto the green in a certain amount of times, and there's just a lot of tension. Where so many people, hopefully some of you can relate with this, how many times has somebody hit a shot in golf and it's horrible, and you say, oh, I can do better than that, and you just throw a second ball down, just as a mulligan, and that second shot's perfect. Yeah. It proves to you right there that you have no technical problems. Your technical swing is fine. It's how much tension is on the first swing when it counts, and the second one when it doesn't. Mm-hmm. Tension is a humongous key. So yeah, greens in regulation that we were talking about. So if you were going to be thinking about statistics the next time that you're out there, we want to look at 3 different statistics that you're looking at. Greens in regulation, which we kind of talked about earlier, and if you noticed earlier, we don't need to hit that many, even if you were trying to break 90, and if you're having to break 100, you don't have to hit any. So greens in regulation, don't worry about that as much, but we want to keep those stats. Putts per round is a humongous one that we want to be able to keep track of. And then finally, double bogeys.
And how about with putts, when we're just a little bit off the green and we're still putting it? I mean, I keep stats on most of my rounds that I play. And a lot of those putts that I'm taking off the green, let's say they're 1 to 5 feet off the green, I'm still counting that as a putt. Sometimes I would just say, do what's consistent for you. So if you want to count it as a putt, count it. Just stay consistent throughout your stat taking.
Absolutely. Usually what I say is if you're putting from like a really weird situation, so let's say you're way down like in a gully and you putt it up and up onto the green, I would definitely count that more as a chip because you're putting from kind of a weird area. But if you're putting from just off the fringe where it's like it really feels like you're actually putting, then yeah, counting it as a putt totally.
Okay.
So that's a great clarification there. But keeping track of your greens in regulation is a humongous one. And if you are going to be one that is trying to break 90, let's just talk about that just for a second. What's the statistics of a person who needs to break 90? They need to hit 3 greens in regulation, have 34 putts, and 3 double bogeys. So that would be kind of a good thing for you to be aiming for if you're wondering, like, if I'm trying to break 90, what are my stats that I need to be looking for? 3 greens in regulation, that means just maybe hitting one of your par 3s in regulation, maybe hitting a short par 5 in regulation, or maybe even a short par 4, but that's it. Because there's your 3 pars right there. Now, if you think about it, just to shoot 90 even, you need to make a bogey on every single hole. So if you bogey every single hole, that's 90. So if you throw 1 par in there, 2 pars in there, or 3 pars in there, you're easily going into the 80s and going below 90.
Yeah, and we're going to get into how to kind of manage a golf hole a different way so that, you're not having these expectations that are
Yes.
getting you more tense on the golf course. How about this table down below too?
Yeah, so here's the statistics here, which is really a cool statistic for you guys to look at. And this is all from a book called Every Shot Counts by Dr. Mark Brody. It's a fantastic book. So if you haven't read that book before, I highly recommend it. It's a very statistical book. So if you're not like really into math or anything, it might be a little overwhelming, but you can skim through it. But it basically shares with you what the stats are for people that are shooting 100 and over, 88 to 98, 78 to 85, 73 to 81, 69 to 76, and 65 to 71. So these are the score ranges of all these. Greens in regulation, 0 as you can see if you're a 100 plus shooter, 88 to 98, hitting 3 greens in regulation, 6 greens in regulation, 9.7, and so on. So greens in regulation is one here. Look at the green side up and downs. You really don't need to even get it up and down very much, even from around the green. Because if you think about it, if you're on the green in regulation +1, let's just say it's a par 4 and it takes you 3 shots to get on the green. Green in regulation would be 2, and then you're on the green in 3. And then you just, you hit the ball onto the green and you 2-putt from there. That's your 5 and that's your bogey. And we'll get into net par later, but yeah. So sand save percentage, as you can see, is fairly low until you start to become a really good player. So that's what we talked about earlier. Not trying to go for the flag, just getting the ball anywhere on the green is a fantastic place to be. Putts per round, as you can see, starts to go lower as you become a better player. Putting is probably the easiest place to start eliminating scores. And eliminating double bogeys and that you don't need on your score, or even bogeys that you don't really need on your score. Getting rid of those 3 putts is crucial. And if you 2-putt every single hole for an 18-hole round, that's 36 putts. So you can see if you're not breaking 100 right now and you're looking to try to break 90 or even maybe step into the 88 area here, you need 35 putts or lower. And if you don't know what you're doing out on the course, all the more reason to be motivated to start keeping those statistics.
Absolutely. So let's get into double bogeys and start breaking those down, which the double bogey section will move into our second pillar, because really all of these on this next page, net par being a good goal, 6, 6, and 6, and then divide by 2 is all going to help us eliminate double bogeys as much as possible. So let's get into it.
Yeah, so when we do have double bogeys or worse, hopefully we're not making more than double bogeys, but if you do, you really want to circle them and really try to figure out why are we making those double bogeys, And sometimes it comes from that too high of an expectation where you're thinking you have to try to make par, when bogey should be your par. So this first one here, net par is a good goal. So if you have a handicap of 18, let's just say, that means that you should be averaging a bogey on every hole. And this is something that even Tiger Woods did as a kid, and his dad gave to him, was a net par. Like, what is your individual par that you should be trying to go for? Not the par of the actual hole. Is a crucial one. So knowing what your net par is and trying to not try to strive for those pars, because sometimes you take extra risks when you really don't need to, and that's what turns them into double bogeys. Some other reasons why we sometimes get those double bogeys is penalty shots, so putting them into water or out of bounds types of shots. Chipping twice on a green. So if you ever have to chip twice, which we've all done, if you blade a ball over the green or chunk a chip, chipping twice is usually another reason why we might double bogey.
Or even in a bunker, you
or
can't get out
it
the
in the
first
bunker.
time and you have to hit it a second, third,
Absolutely.
fourth time.
Just
throw it out.
Just throw it out. Exactly right. Just as a poll here, just of the people that are here, who here really struggles with bunkers? Most hands should be up, and if you don't, consider yourself lucky, because that's really a cool thing. And actually, I found a quote the other day by Jack Nicklaus, who's a famous golfer, and he said one time, the best way to avoid trouble, the best way to deal with trouble whenever you get into the bunker, let's say you hate hitting out of the bunker, the best way to deal with trouble is to just not get into it. I know it seems really obvious.
That's something I feel like my parents would have told me in high school.
But a perfect example right here. Yeah, exactly right. Best way not to get into trouble is to not get in trouble.
Let's show one of the holes with water on it.
Oh, okay.
too.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So let's take a look at one of the ones here with the water on it, right? Okay. So here would be an example. My second little pillar here on this page, if you guys are following along, is 6, 6, and 6. So we want to identify the 6 hardest holes out on the golf course. Okay.
What's
the
an
6?
easy way to figure that out, though? Can you tell us? Like, meaning each hole
Oh yeah, the
is
handicap.
rated.
Yeah, exactly right. So yeah, on each scorecard there is a handicap for the holes. The lower the number on the handicap of the scorecard, the harder the hole is. So if you look at the handicap on the scorecards, the number 1 hole is the hardest hole on the golf course. The number 18 handicap is the easiest hole on the golf course. So you circle, and maybe have some type of a legend on your scorecard where you highlight your really 6 hardest holes on the golf course. And it may look like this one right here. As you can see, we have water all the way up the right side of this particular hole. We have forest all the way on the left side of the hole. And then once you get up to the green, it's surrounded by bunkers. So there's nothing but trouble here. So talking about kind of what your net par might be for this particular hole, maybe even accepting that this might be one of your double bogey holes, should actually start to relieve some stress. Because it's like, let's just say this is a par 5. I only have to I can make a 7 here. I have 7 shots to get the ball into the hole. That's a lot easier than trying to go through this incredibly troublesome hole and trying to make a 5. That's when you try to hit your drive super hard and get it to go far and you accidentally slice it into the water. Or maybe you try to you don't hit a great drive, but then you try to hit the hero shot here to here, and now you have 170 yards into the green, and you're like, oh, I have to hit the green in regulation. Then you get stuck in the bunker, and then you leave it in the bunker. So when we talk about avoiding trouble, it goes into kind of our third pillar here, which is the divide by 2 theory, which is one that I got from my mentor, Jim McLean. And basically, let's just say you hit your drive here and it's not very good. We're okay with making double bogey here, so we got plenty of shots left. Let's say instead of trying to hit the hero shot with the 3-wood, since I have plenty of time, let's say I hit, just my favorite club. And let's say my favorite club is a 7-iron. Hit my 7-iron up to here. Now I have 180 yards into the green. Instead of trying to hit the 180-yard shot, which I might be able to hit 2 out of 10 times, if I just hit it perfect, why don't we divide by 2? So instead of hitting the hero shot 180 to get to the green in regulation, why don't I divide the 180 divided by 2 and hit 2 90-yard shots? How much more less pressure feels like, 2 90-yard shots, that's a lot easier. So utilizing the divide by 2 theory, especially on one of your 6 hardest holes when you have strokes to make up, because later on, you might be faced with a hole that looks like this, which is less intimidating. There's not as much water. It's a much shorter hole. There's not as much trouble going on. This is a hole maybe we do go for the green in regulation if you feel like you're long enough, or something like that. So managing your way around the golf course is sometimes one of the main reasons why most people don't score very well, because they don't think it through. They just think that they have to hit the ball as far as they possibly can, and they have to hit the hero shot all the time. But thinking about those net pars and thinking about which holes are tough is a big key.
Justin, can we go back to the water hole?
Of course,
Yes. How about we walk through the hole from tee box all the way to green, and just say kind of where the best spot to aim would be.
Absolutely.
Considering the situation where there's trees on the left, water on the right. Take us through this hole just so, because again, even if we get on in 4, you still have your chance to make par.
Sure.
Or make a 6, which is still 1 better than our goal of 7.
Correct.
Because most likely we have 2 strokes on this hole anyways, because it's the hardest hole on the golf course.
Correct.
Okay, great.
Yep.
All right, so walk us through this hole.
So first off, my first suggestion, if I'm caddying for you, let's just say I was your caddy and we're coming up to this hole and you're like, oh my God, this is the hardest hole on the course. What do I do? First off, I would take the driver out of your hands. Hit a club if driver's your favorite club in the world and you hit it straight and it's awesome all the time, keep it in your hands. But if it's not your club that you hit perfect all the time, hitting a hybrid off the tee is totally fine. We have 4 shots to go to get to this hole. That's plenty of time to make up some of those shots. So first thing, because we have trouble left and right, there's really nowhere to miss it, right? You really have to go straight. What club are you going to hit? Even if driver is your best club and you love your driver, you're statistically going to hit a hybrid straighter because it has more loft, it creates more spin, which creates less side spin, so you're going to hit it straighter. So if there's a situation like this where we have nowhere to miss, hit the hybrid off the tee, get it in play.
But even, wouldn't you agree,
yes.
Probably aim for the left side.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Penalty strokes we do not want.
Yeah.
Yes. So aiming for the left side.
The left side of the fairway, and you know what? If it trickles into the woods, it's still better than trickling into the water.
Exactly right. Yeah, so we're going to aim down the right side. Most of the time, aim down the left side. Most of the time, if you're trying to aim down the left side, we want to typically tee up more on the right side of the tee box. So if you're looking to aim down the left side, right side of the tee box is where you want to go. So you always want to tee up on the same side of the tee box where the main trouble is, which is the water on the right side. Does that make sense? So then the second shot here, since we're not trying to get there in 3, is just to bump a good shot up here. So as Tori said, yeah, what if we trickled into the woods? No problem. I can still just punch a 7-iron up here, a little bit further up here. Now I get to induce my divide by 2 theory. Now what's great about the divide by 2 theory? It takes these bunkers out of play, right? So if I'm trying to hit my 180-yard shot, now I have a better chance of getting into the bunkers. But let's say it's a 180-yard shot to the flag, and let's say it's maybe 150 yards to the front edge of this bunker. Maybe I don't divide by 2, but maybe I hit my 110-yard shot, which then puts me, 70 yards left into the green. Then I hit my 70-yard shot into the safer part of the green here, maybe over here on the left. So there's no, I guess this bunker's really covering everything here, but basically, or maybe I really make a confident swing because I have some room over on the backside here, but I take that confident swing, hit it anywhere onto the green, I 2-putt, and I make my 6, right? And then that's 1 better than my net par because I was okay if I even made double bogey on this particular hole. So by relieving that pressure, you relieve the tension, and it increases the chances that you're actually going to hit a lot better shots.
Absolutely. All right, are we good to move on? Or?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's move on. We also had these pictures on our...
So you have the pictures of some of these holes.
Absolutely. The 3 circles of mental management. Did you want to?
Yeah. So let's go into the mental management. So a lot of this stuff that I'm going to be talking about here is from another fantastic book that I love about the mental game. And most people haven't heard about this because this particular author, it was not really a golfer. He utilized this mental management system to be an Olympic rifle shooter. So that was his main sport. But he used it to win a gold medal in the 1976 Olympics, and his name's Lanny Basham. So that's where a lot of this information is coming from. So the 3 circles of mental management is the conscious brain, the subconscious brain, and the self-image. Okay, so that's the kind of the 3 circles of our mental game. And the better that you can control these and utilize these, the better that you are going to play. We're going to talk about each circle in detail in just a moment here. So we have this nice image here. As you can see, I was an artist as a minor, but this is my version of a submarine, and it's a fantastic image of what each circle is supposed to represent when you're managing your mental game. The conscious brain is basically the scope. That's actually what are you consciously focusing on. The steering wheel is your subconscious. It tends to steer wherever your scope is looking. Okay, so whatever you tend to put your scope on, or whatever you put your attention on,
for
the
instance,
steering wheel.
The water that's running
Exactly right.
side.
When we look at this water, even if you say don't hit it in the water, your brain still only sees water, right? So it's like your scope's going like, don't go there, but then the steering wheel's like, okay, and it just steers you right over there. So Whatever you concentrate on, your steering wheel tends to drive you in that particular direction. And then finally, the self-image is the propeller on the back of the submarine that controls how fast or how slow you can go. Okay? And we're going to get into a little bit more detail with this type of stuff. So, conscious brain. This is a quote from Confucius, a famous Chinese philosopher. The man who thinks he can and the man who thinks he can't are both right. Also women too. The women who can and think they can and think they can't are usually right. So yeah, we tend to be controlled by what we believe that we are capable of doing. So one of the things when it comes to breaking 100 or breaking 90 is believing that you're capable of getting there. That's like the first step. You have to believe that you're going to be able to get there, because it doesn't matter how good your technique gets. If you don't believe that you belong there, you'll never get there, no matter how good you get. So it really, you have to get over that hurdle of really starting to convince yourself that you belong wherever you want to go, even if it feels like you're lying to yourself at the beginning. You have to really tell yourself that I belong there. Anything you write about, think about, or talk about, you increase the chances of it happening again in the future. This was a quote from the book, and I think it's one of the best things that you can do. We got, for those of you that don't know, but most of you probably know, we call the 19th hole is the bar after the round, right? When we go in and have a glass of wine and we drown ourselves in our sorrows of all the things that went wrong out on the golf course, right? So that's typically what we do when we go in there, right? Most people don't go in there, though, and talk about anything that good happened in the round, even though most likely something did go well. Even on your worst round, you can think back to at least one hole that went really well. But what do we tend to put a lot of our focus on? What went wrong, right? Anything you talk about, write about, or think about, you increase the chances of that happening again in the future.
And that goes back to keeping your stats, too. So if you have one of those rounds where you're really struggling or you're down after that round, look at your stats, because I'm sure one of them, whether it's putts, green and regulation, or fairways, most likely one of them is not that bad, and you can take that with you to the next round.
Absolutely, yeah. It's almost the 3 pillars of statistics, right? Maybe you had way too many double bogeys. However, maybe you had a good putting day, and that's something that say, hey, I at least had that going for me. I just had too many double bogeys because of whatever, and we'll address that later. But really think about, hey, I had a great putting day that day, so that was a really good point. Conscious brain can only concentrate on one thing at a time. So if you make it a positive thing, negative thoughts can't enter your brain. If you make it a negative one, positive things can't enter your brain. So you can only think of one thing at a time, so we might as well make it a positive one.
And just putting that into a golf round, that could be a target.
Yeah.
Your target. If your target's just that left side of the fairway, that's all you're thinking about, is that left side of the fairway.
Absolutely, yeah. You typically want to ask yourself, where do I want to go here? Most people answer the question of, where do I not want to go? Positive pictures demand positive results from the subconscious, and the opposite is true. So controlling that mental picture, super important. The Good Swing Thought book. This is an idea that I learned from another teacher that I was working with, and he said he had spent some time with Ian Poulter, and Ian Poulter keeps a Good Swing Thought book. It's a small book that you can put in your bag, and anytime that you have a good round, a good practice round, a good tournament, even a good practice session on the range, you write in the book. So anytime you have a good idea, ooh, man, when I was thinking about whatever, I was really hitting the ball well. I'm going to write into the book. If you have a bad practice round or a bad practice session, you don't write in the book. But you start to collect all of these great thoughts that have brought you good results in the past, which once again gets you to start writing about, thinking about, and talking about good things that are happening in your game that you hope to multiply into the future.
And Justin, with a golf swing, with mostly everyone, isn't there maybe one, maybe two things that we struggle with as with our personal golf swing? So really always, no matter what you're working on, it always kind of goes back to those one or two things. Mm-hmm. So having that swing thought book might just click.
For sure.
One of those bad habits that always kind of spring up.
Yeah.
You know.
And hopefully some of you do take lessons, because I think lessons are a fantastic way to get better. And maybe you do have your favorite coach and he's told you, or she has told you some good things about your swing or a good swing thought. that's a great opportunity to write into the book, right? So they're going to be good at keeping you on track on thinking of that one or two things that you should be thinking about in your swing. Those would be great things to be having in your book as well. I was even talking to somebody before we started, and she said, I tend to think about my tempo. If I really have a good control of my tempo, I really tend to have a really great round. Awesome thing to put in the book, because then that keeps you focused on the things that bring you great success.
There are some times, like right now, I think a Nelly Cordes swing. I'm sure y'all have seen it. It's beautiful. It's a work of art. I also used to think about Ernie Els' swing. If you've ever watched Ernie Els swing, it's just soft and slow and beautiful and nothing like my swing.
Yep.
And it just helps, but it helps my tempo because I'm very fast and rigid and I move a lot. So thinking of those two swings help me kind of slow down.
Absolutely, that's great. The self-evaluation trust exercise, I love this. This is something that you can really, really self-evaluate yourself on how well you are trusting your own swing and trusting your ability to be successful. On a scale of 1 to 10, after you hit a shot, how much did you trust yourself that you would be able to let the swing go? Because a lot of times on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being absolute trust, has anybody ever hit a shot here? And I'm hoping you say yes, because I hear people say this all the time. Has anybody ever hit a shot here and it was fantastic? And people say, I knew that was going to be good before I even swung. Nobody. Okay, perfect. So, no one's ever had that feeling.
How about I felt really comfortable over that swing.
Yes.
Like it felt comfortable.
Right.
And,
so you feel comfortable, you feel positive right before you're hit.
And maybe it's your favorite yardage, whether
exactly
it's 80
right.
yards, 70 yards.
You were just in a good mental space. Yes, at the driving range. Yes, maybe sometimes that happens, right? So yeah, sometimes you get into this just super positive space. It's like you almost can predict the future. Like I almost know that this is going to be a great shot before you even hit it. Getting into that mental spot, and what that's really basically doing is judging how much do you trust yourself to pull off the shot. Most people don't have a high trust level that they're going to pull off the shot. So what do? They try to manipulate, they try to fix the shot in the middle of the swing because they're thinking, oh no, this is going to be bad, which is why controlling that mental picture is such a huge thing. So when it comes to let's just say you were going to have a swing flaw that you were going to try to fix each time that you were going to swing. Let's just say it was like elbow down. Each time that you're going to think about, oh, I'm going to try to get my elbow down, elbow down, elbow down. Maybe this thing is something that you should be focusing on. How many shots in a row can I hit with a 10 trust in my mind, where I just swing away knowing that it's going to be fine and I'm not going to manipulate? It's a fantastic way to self-evaluate your own mental game and see if you can just let it go.
Meaning swing with no swing thought then.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because back again, well, maybe not no swing thought, but making sure it's only one. And a lot of times when people drop that second ball, which I heard a lot of people raise their hand for that one, or saw people raise their hand for that one, when you hit that second shot, what swing thought did you have for the second shot? 9 times out of 10, nothing. You just swung, and it was sometimes anger, right? Like, I can do this, watch. That's a 10 mentality, right? I know this next one's going to be great because there's nothing on it, there's no pressure, and you're almost like, watch how good this is. You want that mentality on the first one, not the second one, and that's the 10 mentality when you're stepping up to the ball. Mm-hmm. So having that mental evaluation, how good did I do? And maybe even write it down. In your practice, you could do this. Out on the range, you could do this. You could maybe even in your statistics put a little number somewhere. Maybe not on the scorecard, but keep track of how many 10s did I have in the round of golf. It could work on putts too. How many times you're on a 4-footer and right in the middle of your backswing, you're like, oh, I'm going to miss this, right? That's not a 10 mentality, right? So it's self-evaluation of how you're thinking over the green.
Bobby Cole story.
Okay.
Yeah, we got time.
Cool. Bobby Cole story. Working for Jim McLean, I got to work with a fantastic, fantastic teacher named Bobby Cole. He was also a fantastic player. He was from South Africa, which just basically meant anytime that he taught, he had that South African accent, which made everything 10% smarter every time that he spoke, which was just, I was very jealous of it. And also I just listened to him because you could just listen to him talk forever because he got that South African accent. But He won the 1966 British Amateur at the age of 18, and because of that, he was invited to play in the Masters that same year. And since he was such a young, up-and-coming player, they paired him with the #1 player in the world at the time was Sam Snead. As he walks up to the first hole, he goes to introduce himself to Sam Snead. He says, "Hello, Mr. Snead. My name's Bobby Cole. I'll be playing with you today." And Sam Snead turns to him and says, "I want you to watch me today, kid, because you're going to learn a lot." Bobby Cole's like, "Okay, Mr. Snead, thank you so much." Sam Snead gets up there, pipes it right down the middle, just perfect. Now comes Bobby Cole. Bobby Cole is so nervous as he's reaching down to tee up his ball. His hand's like shaking, right? He's just so nervous. And as he gets up to set up to hit the shot, all of these bad thoughts start going through his head, right? Don't slice it into the scoreboard on the right side. Don't duck hook it into the people. Because when the #1 player in the world's teeing off, there's like 6 rows of people wanting to see the glimpse of the #1 player, right? So he's like, don't duck hook it and hit somebody. He's like, don't whiff the ball. You're a professional golfer now. So all these horrible thoughts. But then he asked himself a really simple question. And he asked himself, what's the best possible outcome of this situation? And when he asked himself that question, the idea that came to his head was outdrive Sam Snead. That would be the best possible outcome, right? I could outdrive Sam Snead. So right away, by asking that question, his mental picture, his conscious brain, his scope on his submarine looked away from the scoreboard on the right, looked away from the duck hook into the people on the left, looked away from the topping of the ball, and stared right down the middle of the fairway and saw his ball going past Sam Snead before he even swung. Because he asked himself that simple question. What's the best possible outcome? Sure enough, he swings back, boom, the ball goes down the middle of the fairway, passes Sam Snead, and then they start to walk off the fairway, walk off the tee box. Sam Snead goes off first, and he walks off the tee box first, walks down the fairway, walks past the first ball, thinking he's the longer one. As they're walking up, Sam Snead's caddy looks at the first ball, and he says, "Hey, Sam, you're back here." And he's like, "What?" And he starts stomping his feet, starts walking back, and he says, "These darn Wilson balls, they don't go anywhere." He starts blaming the equipment. So then Bobby Cole kind of leans into him and said, "Well, would you like to borrow a Titleist?" So he kind of gave it back to him a little bit there. But that's a fantastic story of, there's no more pressure than being 18 years old with the #1 player in the world at the Masters in front of thousands of people and having to hit this first tee shot. And he had the same thoughts that go through each of your heads, goes through my heads right before my head before I go off to go through the first tee. And having that question, you can ask yourself, what's the best possible outcome? Totally changes that scope and
And hopefully helps with those first tee jitters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, great.
All right, subconscious brain. The home of all mental power. This is where we do everything great. Our conscious brain, and I use this analogy quite a bit. The conscious brain is basically like the bully at school who's big and strong and can bully people around. The subconscious brain is the small little nerd that has the glasses and who's insanely smart, but the bully can take over him anytime that he wants to. But all the power is in this subconscious circle. This is where everyone does things great, and this is why the second shot's always better than the first. We hit the first shot with our conscious brain with the bully at the wheel, and then we allow the smart guy or smart gal to take the wheel, and all of a sudden that second shot's great because we're not thinking anything, right? Subconscious takes over, hits the second shot, and it's perfect every single time. It can perform into the millions of calculations at one time. That's why we can walk, we can breathe, we can, sit on a couch without too much conscious effort. There's a lot of things we can do regularly throughout the day that we do with our subconscious brain. It's not something that we have to do. We drive subconsciously, right? So these are really high-level skills. Driving a car is a high-level skill that we're able to do subconsciously because we're not so worried about everything. We are maybe at the first, when we're first learning to drive, but eventually it's a skill that we can easily do without even thinking about it. So there's a lot of power in that area. The best performance is when the subconscious is allowed to control the performance. However, your conscious can override anytime. It's basically saying what I just said about the bully and the nerd. And then I gave the example of falling asleep. If you ever tried to consciously fall asleep, you don't fall asleep, right? You know, it's like, I always use the analogy of the kids before, you know, Christmas morning, right? Christmas night, right? They're trying so hard to fall asleep because they know they'll wake up and they just can't fall asleep, right? But if you just finally relax, stop thinking about so much stuff, all of a sudden the subconscious takes over and it lets you fall asleep. Passing my PAT story. So to become a PGA professional, which I'm honored to be, you have to pass a player's ability test. That's what PAT stands for. And when I had to do this, obviously, I was very nervous about it because I knew if I didn't pass my first time, each time afterwards was going to be much harder and harder. I passed it as a senior in high school before I went to college, and you have to basically shoot 2 rounds of 76 back to back, 36 holes in one day. And I brought a caddy along with me, and it was really just my buddy, you know, my high school buddy, and he rode along with me. We got to ride, and he was just like my caddy. He did not read one putt for me that day. He did not tell me one club selection that day. Basically, we sat in the car, we talked about basketball and girls. And basically, that distracted my conscious brain to start thinking about things that I liked at the time. I still like those things too, but you know, but it was me talking about that stuff, you know, and distracting myself from, oh no, I have to hit this drive down the middle. Oh no, I have to do this. It got me into this positive spot. So that's what I tend to tell a lot of people in golf. When you're out in a round of golf, don't be mentally grinding the entire time you're out there. Spark up a conversation with the people. Talk about the housewives, or talk about the clothes that you're wearing, or talk about, you know,
Whatever's going on.
Whatever's going on, but make it positive. Don't be talking about, you know, bad things that are going in your life, but the more that they're almost off the topic of golf and that there's something that you enjoy talking about will keep you in this positive light and make golf really easy. And if you've ever thought about it, anytime you walk off the 18th hole and it's the best round you've ever played, think back to that time that you've played your best round ever. Was it easy or was it hard to play that really great round?
Easy.
It's easy. When you play an incredibly horrible round, it's really hard. It's exhausting, right? So I tend to quote this quite a bit. Great golf is actually really easy. Bad golf takes a lot of work. So if you are mentally grinding out there thinking that you have to be thinking about your golf game the entire time you're out there, 9 times out of 10 you're going to play pretty poorly. So the PAT story was just like, I brought this caddy along not to read a putt, just to keep my mind distracted from how much I knew my conscious brain would have been just going all over the place. So that's my PAT
great.
story.
Right.
Think back to you. Oh man, I'm on top of this stuff.
You
All
don't
right,
even need
great
it.
golf is easy. Bad golf is a lot of work. Man, it's like I prepared or something.
On to self-image.
All right. Self-image is equal to your habits and your attitudes. Self-image is always equal to your performance. So if you're someone who's trying to break 90 and you shoot 40 on the front side, let's just say that you shoot 40 on the front side. If you shoot 40 again, you shoot 80. You break 90 by 10 strokes. And I've had this happen to me many times, that you have it in the bag. You shot 40 on the front side. It's like all I have to do is break 50 on the back nine. I could shoot 49, but I'll break 90. And 9 times out of 10, you find a way to shoot 51 or 52 on the backside, and you lose it by 2. Why? Because your self-image doesn't believe that you belong there, which is one of the things I said earlier in the workshop, right? If you don't believe that you belong there, your self-image will figure out a way to get you back into the place that you're comfortable. If you see yourself as a person who shoots in the low to mid 90s or the low to mid 100s, no matter how good you play on that front nine, and you don't believe that you belong breaking that goal, you're gonna go back and shoot horribly on the back nine no matter what, because your brain is just not ready to go there. And that's basically what this self-image is all about. It's where do you believe that you belong, even if you're not there. And there's so many mental books that talk about anytime that you accomplish anything in life, it's usually you create it in your mind that you've accomplished that, and then you go do it in the real world. And even as simple as just walking out of this room, if I had to walk out of that door, I would see in my mind the pathway that I had to go, and I would see myself successfully doing that, and then I would go execute that plan. If I'm worried about tripping over the chair and I worried about running into the wall, that's going to probably happen. But you have to create it in your mind first before it can actually happen in reality. And that's all about the self-image. Where do you believe that your golf game belongs? Where do you actually believe the scores that you should be scoring? And that's huge.
So this is interesting because, I think it's episode 34. It's going to air next Thursday. It's all about manifestation and how we can use manifestation out on the golf course. And she talks about the exact same thing. Like, you have to believe that you can break 100 or break 90. But then the second step is you actually have to do the work in the background in order to fully believe that you can do it. So it's like, believe that you can do it, but then the second step is take the action that someone that breaks 90 or someone that breaks 100 does.
And is that Kathy? Or,
Tiffany.
Oh, Tiffany.
Yeah.
Nice. So you have to believe it before you go. And most people say, I will start to believe it once I do it, I'll then believe it. It never works in that order. And if you think it will, you'll wait forever. You have to mentally get there first before you'll physically get there. If you wait till you physically get there until you'll start believing it, it will never happen. It will never happen. It's so important to believe it first. Whatever you consistently talk about, write about, or think about, we talked about that earlier, that becomes your self-image. So that's what I was talking about. At the 19th hole, when you're talking to your friends, I'm almost inviting you to be just a tiny bit arrogant. Just be a little bit arrogant. Talk nicely about your golf game. It is classic for everyone to downplay themselves. And the reason why most people are doing this is because they don't want the people that are playing with them to have too high of expectations of how well they're going to play.
And guess what? They don't care.
They don't.
They
don't care, and they don't even realize. I was talking to somebody else just before this. Nobody sees it, and it's almost embarrassing. When I get invited to go play golf with students, I'll go play with them, and it's not usually a playing lesson. So if I get invited to play, I'm not really teaching them while I'm out there. I'm just going and playing. Usually around the 7th or 8th hole, they'll turn to me and say, okay, what am I doing with my game? And I'm so embarrassed because I have not watched one shot of their shot because I'm so focused on myself and wanting to play well myself and so nervous that I'm not going to play well and that they are going to judge me that I don't watch them. And I'm the more experienced one and I should be watching them, but I'm just so worried so when you top the ball and you think all eyes are on you, no one really sees it. They see it, but they don't even recognize that they see it because they're just so focused on what their next shot is. Mm-hmm. But that's why a lot of people tend to downplay themselves, is because they're setting themselves up that if they don't play well, they've already kind of given some talk that's saying I'm not really that good of a player. I'm not very good. They're kind of defending the fact that they might play badly in front of you. Nobody really cares. Nobody really knows that you're playing badly. So we need to change that self-talk. Anything you talk about, write about, or think about, it increases the chances of that happening again in the future. And it tends to start to define your self-image. Go ahead.
Well, and the thing I hear the most consistently is, I'm such a bad putter. Or I can 3-putt from there when they're 3 feet away from the hole. I hear that them tell themselves and tell people what a horrible putter they are. And every time they say that, I'm like, well, of course, now you're going to be a bad putter if you keep saying that about yourself. So that's probably the one I hear the most out on the course.
Yes. And I hear it too. Everybody, it's a commonality. People tend to downplay themselves quite a bit. One other quick story that just came into my mind about self-image. There was a junior golfer I was teaching about 6 years ago. He's in college now, but he was one of 3 junior golfers I taught at my club. He was by far the least talented of the 3. by far. Like not a good swing, didn't hit the ball very far. And I was giving him a playing lesson one time, and it was just so funny. He had kind of a quirky personality too, but he would like hook the ball off the tee box into the trees. And he says, "Watch, I'll make par from there. Watch, I'll make par from there." Like he was just like he was challenged by like, "Watch, I hit her over there. I'll get that up and down. I'll make that." And he just like he had this such incredible self-belief that he could just get it up and down from anywhere or make par from anywhere, or like it was the best mental game I had ever seen in person, like by far, because he just had such self-belief that no matter what happened, he was going to turn a positive into it. And I guarantee you the majority of golfers are exactly the opposite. We hit a drive down the middle of the fairway. Oh, I hope I don't make double from there. Oh my God, I hit the ball on the green. Oh, I hope I don't 3-putt from there. We are the exact opposite of this player. And that is just like, it was the best mental game ever. And that just popped into my head. I wasn't even ready
that's a great
to
story.
talk about that.
That's a great story.
Okay. We
have time.
Okay.
We have time. Oh, one other thing too. If you have any questions, we're just about to get into the question and answer section. So if you have any questions, just jot it down so that you don't forget. But go ahead, Justin.
All right, Forest Highlands Tin Cup story. I'm the director of instruction at Forest Highlands up in Flagstaff, and that's where I spend my summertime, and that's where Tori and I met originally. And every year in August, we have a tournament called the Tin Cup. And basically, it's where each pro on staff gets paired with 4 members, and we play an 18-hole tournament. The pros play basically against each other for some money, which is really cool. It's a way that they thank the pros for all their work for the season. It's an awesome tradition, and I think it's great. My first summer up there, I was really nervous to go play because first off, I hardly ever play golf. I teach golf all the time. I play 5 to 6 rounds of golf a year. Like I really don't play very much golf. So now I'm having to play in a tournament, which I haven't played in a really long time, and I'm the director of instruction, right? So people are looking at me like, well, here's the master. Let's see what he can do. So many thoughts were going through my mind, even to oh my God, no one's going to take lessons from me if I play poorly. I mean, just so many bad thoughts. I played the worst round of my life. So, and I scored poorly. I barely broke 90, which is really bad for a pro. So, the next year, Tin Cup time comes around. I did zero preparation because once again, I teach a ton of hours, and I blocked my schedule 2 hours in the evening the night before the tournament. And I basically hit balls on the back range and went and played a short 9 holes. And the only thing I said in my head the entire time was, I'm going to shoot 66 tomorrow. I'm going to shoot 66 tomorrow. What would a guy who's going to shoot 66 tomorrow hit this 2-iron like? What would a guy who's going to shoot 66 tomorrow hit a flop shot over this bunker? What would a 66 guy do if he was going to look at this putt? I literally just kept telling myself, I'm going to shoot 66. In the tournament, every single round, every single shot, I said, I'm going to shoot 66 today. I'm going to shoot 66 today. I didn't shoot 66, but I shot 74, which was a humongous redemption from the year before, and I came in 3rd place, and it was a really big redemption round, and it felt really good. But I infused my self-image that I was going to go out and I was going to shoot really well. Where basically the year before, I didn't say the number, which I shot 89. I didn't say the number, but I basically was saying, oh, I hope I don't shoot 89 today. Oh, I hope I don't shoot 89 today. I didn't say that number, but a lot of my thoughts were basically saying that thought, which manifested what I shot,
Well, and even there's a couple events, tournaments that mean a lot to me, and I'll be laying in bed the night before, and most likely the thoughts going through my head the night before are, oh my God, I hope I don't embarrass myself. Oh my God, I hope I don't shoot 300. Oh my God, I hope I don't slice the first tee shot off into the water. Or, like you're hoping for these bad things not to happen.
Yep.
Instead of being like, okay, I'm going to go out and do it tomorrow. I'm going to, or thinking even about the stats. I'm going to have 31 putts tomorrow. I'm going to hit 12 greens. This is how we're going to get it done. You know, it's
Absolutely.
always the negative side.
And I think it's just
the scary side.
I think it's human nature just to be that survival instinct, right? You know, like, you know, get back to the caveman days. We avoided like the dangerous lion and the poison berries. Like, I mean, it's just natural human nature to avoid danger just to survive. And we take that same survival instinct into the game of golf. Even though there's nothing threatening to our life, we just go into that survival instinct, and also the fact that the game is just volatile. There is a lot of bad shots in golf. You will, and back to our like original quiz, the best players in the world will have anywhere from 21 to 24 shots different from their best score to their worst score, meaning that they could shoot as low as 64 or as high as 85 or 86. So like that's a huge inconsistency there that most of us here in the room have that same inconsistency. So just accepting the fact that it's going to be an inconsistent game, and we really can't control the outcome. We can only control certain things, and one of those things that we can control is what we're thinking about over the shot.
Absolutely.
So,
Sorry, I was reading that last bullet point. One reason why my students always hit well in lessons with me.
we'll skip to that one. So yeah, I mean, this one's not that great. So, why people always hit balls well in front of me? I don't know, and most of you may get this. I'm a pretty positive person. I am very, very positive, and I am pumping my students full of positivity when they're in front of me. When they top the ball, I am not basically, what are you doing? I can't believe you topped it again. We've been over it a million times. I don't do that.
Oh my God, that would go viral on TikTok. Just say that. Write that down as an idea. Okay.
But that's how most people talk to themselves. But when I am, and especially like if I'm in like a ladies clinic or anything like that, and I have like 6 or 7 people, I'm basically walking up and down the range, and I'm basically just looking for people to hit good shots. I'll give a little bit of instructions, a little bit of technique, and I have the 6 people hitting, and my eye is just like searching. Oh, good, Amy, awesome shot over there. That was awesome. Boom, boom. Oh, Jesse, yes, great shot over there. That was amazing. So I'm always just looking for the great shot. Why? Because I want that student to remember it. That's what we're going to learn from. We're going to learn from the great shots. And this is another great story. The difference between adults that learn and kids that learn. Adult will come to my lesson and they'll start hitting balls, right? First one, decent shot. Second one, decent shot. Third one, decent shot. Fourth one, chunk, horrible. See, that's what I always do, right there. How do I stop doing that? Right? Child who's hitting on the range, top the ball, 4 inches behind the ball, top the ball, top the ball. Perfect shot. Look! Kids are like sponges because they only look for the really good shots, right? You know, that's what they're excited about, and that's what we should be excited about being out there, right? Golf is incredibly fun when we hit great shots. And even my dad said this to me when I was a kid, was that what you want to do is you want to hit a great shot and try to remember what did that feel like and try to repeat that. Don't try to hit a bad shot and try to figure out what you did there and try to stop doing that. That's not really how we get better. We learn from our great shots, good swing thought book, which we talked about earlier, and learn about those, learn how to repeat those, and that is the fastest way to improvement.
Is there a way to feel it better? Because sometimes when I hit a good shot and someone will be like, did you feel that? Did you feel that? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know what I felt. I don't know. Like, is there a way, like, what are we trying to feel? What kind of feedback can we possibly get in that half a second that we're swinging a golf club?
That's such a great point, because people say that to me all the time, because I'm like, they'll hit a great shot and I say, what did you feel there? And they're like, it felt good. I'm like, well, can't get a lot out of that. But in the first 5 to 10 shots that you hit really well, you probably aren't going to feel anything different. But if you keep your focus on those good shots, all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, wait a second, I did feel something a little bit different. But if your focus is always on the bad shots, like the first adult player, he's hitting good shots and he's not even paying attention to them. So eventually when I say to him or her, you know, what did that one feel like? They're like, oh, I didn't even think about that one. Now that I think about it, I don't think I felt anything. But if you keep your attention on it, and let's say you hit 5 or 10 more good ones, maybe not in a row, but maybe out of 30 shots or 40 shots, you hit maybe 10 good shots. Like maybe by the 10th one, you're like, oh, now that I've been only focusing on the good ones, yeah, maybe my 10th one, oh yeah, I did feel my elbow in a different place. Oh, maybe I did feel my weight transfer a little bit differently. And that's when I think is the secret to really figuring that out of what it feels like, is keeping your attention there, because you'll eventually feel what the difference is. But if you only keep at it once and it's only brought to your attention the moment that an instructor brings it to your attention, or maybe a playing partner is, 9 times out of 10, the person's like, oh, I never even thought to think about what my good shot felt like. They're only focused on the bad.